prepare ahead things that you're going to need post-operatively. Real basics like, have you got sufficient food stocked up in your cupboards? Is your freezer stocked up? Have you thought of doing online shopping? Or is there a relative that could be doing that shopping for you? Because you won't be allowed to initially be driving for 6 to 8 weeks, and definitely not be carrying shopping or pushing trolleys.
With regards to other patients and support that they would need at home, I would most certainly recommend that they would need to have someone there on their arrival back at home. And I guess it does depend on how quickly they recover, how well they feel when they've actually been discharged from hospital. But my own personal opinion is that they would need someone with them for a period of time until they felt confident enough to be able to support themselves wholly.
If you have any dependents at home who need your help, you obviously need to think about how they're going to be cared or supported while you're in hospital, but not only just while you're in hospital, also during your recovery period, because you're not going to be able to help support them perhaps, and that includes even walking the dog. They don't advise you to be walking and being pulled along by the dog.
To help prepare for the operation, I've got a young family, so I've got, my baby was 16 months, I've got a 14-year-old and we had a 6-year-old, so we arranged for them to go on holiday with parents while I was in hospital, and they had looked after them so they were away, didn't have to worry. I helped Michael out by labelling all the drawers for the children so he knew exactly where all the clothes were, made sure the freezer was full. And then to come home, Michael was at home for a few days, and then Michael's sister came and stayed with us so she could help get the children ready for school and pack lunches and all those kinds of things, which you found really helpful, didn't you?
If, like I do, you live on your own, the best way to prepare before you come into the operation is make sure that the neighbours, friends are aware. Ideally make sure they've got a key, because it sounds daft, but if you are on your home alone, if no one can get into the house, it causes problems.
And I think in hindsight, you know, it's just the simple things like having somebody to come around and cook a meal for you, and you know, just to take the washing and the ironing. I think that's really important. And maybe on the journey home, if you've got a long journey like us, then maybe we should have stopped halfway overnight and done half the journey and then come home a bit, because I think it was just far too long.
Before you come in for your operation, it would be really beneficial to practice things like getting out of an armchair without pushing up through your arms. So to do that, try shuffling forwards in your chair, place your arms across your chest, rock 3 times to get some momentum, and then push up from the chair. The other thing you can practice is getting out of bed without using your arms. So think about walking your legs to the edge of the bed, rolling onto your side, and then pushing up with your elbow.
If you walk with a walking aid, a stick, a frame, or you're using a wheelchair, it's very important that you mention that to the pre-admission nurses and the specialist nurses before your surgery. They would then refer you to occupational therapy and the discharge planning team. And we would be in touch with you before your operation just to get a few more details and clarify what sort of support we might need to give you during your recovery and on your discharge.
To help other patients to prepare, I would most certainly say that they would need a suitable chair which would enable them to actually remove themselves from without actually pressing down with their arms to actually get out of the chair. Also, I would say that they would need to have a form of rest bed downstairs rather than having to walk upstairs to go to bed, because that I found in the first instance was quite physically challenging.
If you have been referred to occupational therapy, we would also follow you up and see you on the ward. That would be going through how you're managing the basics like getting off your chair, bed and toilet. And on very rare occasions, we might be issuing you a piece of equipment that you could use at home temporarily to make that easier.
Brilliant. Because I felt so tired and not well, I gave in and just let other people look after me. I think it's harder when I started to feel a bit more able and started to try to do stuff. And then there's a lot of other, and I know it's because they care, but I got a lot from other people, members of family, friends, stop doing that, don't do that, sit down, telling you how to be, because they're being careful, and me having to relearn everything about how far I could push myself again and what my limits were, and how much to do before I felt I needed to stop.
I think we
needed
needed
to speak to people, didn't you?
Yeah, we needed to talk to people more about it so that people understood. Because I think people just thought I was coming in just for a minor operation, and nobody really understood. It was only when I came home that it came as a real shock to people that I was so poorly, and been living so far away from the hospital. Nobody really came up to see me. It was only Michael and my best friend, and then a couple of family members popped in for one day. So I think it just, when we got home, it was a bit of a shock to everybody, just quite how poorly I was.
It's hard to describe, although you're told what to expect, until you actually experience it and see it, you can't just simply explain to someone what that's going to be like. You can prepare, as best you can, but to actually be in that situation, it's like, the only way I can think of it is it's like, we've done a lot of travelling, and if you go to a country maybe very different from ours, and you read the guidebooks about what to expect, and how the culture works and how you do things, and that's great, but you step off the plane and it's just there. It's exactly what's described, but now you're experiencing it, and that's very different.